confrontation at the courthouse. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the high windows of courtroom 307, highlighting the dust particles dancing in the air. Naomi Foster adjusted her simple navy blazer and smoothed back a strand of her curly auburn hair that had escaped her practical bun. At 32, she'd spent 8 years as a public defender, fighting for those who couldn't afford to fight for themselves. Today's case was different. The Westside Community Association had specifically requested her help after several corporate lawyers had turned them down. Facing them across the aisle was Harrison Wells, the 40-year-old CEO of Pinnacle Development, whose net worth of $4 billion made him one of the most powerful men in the city. "All rise," called the bailiff as Judge Hernandez entered. As the proceedings began, Harrison sat with perfect posture, his tailored charcoal suit worth more than Naomi's monthly salary. His steel gray eyes revealed nothing as his legal team presented their case for acquiring the disputed property, a block of affordable housing units that housed 37 families. When it was Naomi's turn to speak, she approached the podium with calm determination. "Your Honor, Pinnacle Development claims this acquisition is simply business, but the evidence suggests otherwise." Her voice carried throughout the courtroom. "These residents have valid leases and legal protections. Mr. Wells's company has systematically pressured them through questionable tactics, cutting utilities, ignoring maintenance requests, and even hiring security personnel to intimidate elderly residents." Harrison's jaw tightened, and he leaned forward to whisper something to his attorney, who immediately objected. "Speculation, Your Honor. Counsel is making unfounded accusations." Judge Hernandez looked to Naomi. "Do you have evidence to support these claims, Ms. Foster?" "Indeed I do, Your Honor." Naomi presented a folder of affidavits and photographs. These documents detail every incident, including testimony from security personnel, formerly employed by Pinnacle. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Harrison's expression darkened as he flipped through the copies provided to him. During the recess, Naomi stood by the water cooler when Harrison approached. Standing a full head taller than her, he radiated controlled anger. "Impressive performance, Ms. Foster," he said, his voice low, "but you're out of your depth. This deal will happen with or without the court's approval." Instead of shrinking away, Naomi met his gaze directly. "That sounds remarkably like a threat, Mr. Wells. Should I add intimidation of opposing counsel to my list of your company's tactics?" "You think this is a game?" Harrison's voice remained measured despite his obvious irritation. "These development projects create thousands of jobs. They revitalize neighborhoods." "After displacing the people who actually live in those neighborhoods," Naomi countered. "Your wealth doesn't give you the right to bulldoze people's lives. Perhaps respect is the one thing your billions haven't bought you." The corridor fell silent. Harrison's assistant looked mortified, and several bystanders quickly found reasons to be elsewhere. Instead of the expected explosion, Harrison studied her with unexpected intensity. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. "We'll see who the judge sides with, Ms. Foster," he finally said, turning to leave. "It's not about winning for me," she called after him. "It's about justice." Harrison paused briefly without turning around, then continued walking. When court resumed, Naomi presented her case with the same passion and precision, unaware that Harrison was watching her with newfound interest. By the time Judge Hernandez announced she would review the evidence and issue her ruling the following week, something had fundamentally changed between the adversaries. Neither Naomi nor Harrison realized that their courthouse confrontation had set in motion a sequence of events that would transform both their lives in ways they could never have anticipated. Unexpected invitation, Naomi's victory in court came as a shock to everyone except Judge Hernandez, who had seen the merit in her case from the beginning. The ruling temporarily halted Pinnacle Development's plans and gave the Westside Community Association time to pursue permanent protections. Celebrating with a cup of coffee at her desk rather than champagne, Naomi scrolled through congratulatory messages from community members. The door to her modest office opened, revealing her colleague and friend Prisha Sharma. There she is, the giant slayer herself. Prisha grinned, placing a small potted cactus on Naomi's cluttered desk. "A little victory plant. Low maintenance like you," Naomi laughed. "Thanks. Though I doubt Harrison Wells considers himself slain. More like temporarily inconvenienced. Still, you stood up to him." That's more than most people in this city can say. Prisha leaned against the doorframe. Word is his PR team is in damage control mode. Before Naomi could respond, her office phone rang. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number. Naomi Foster speaking. Ms. Foster, this is Olivia Blackwell, Mr. Wells's executive assistant. The woman's voice was crisp and professional. Mr. Wells would like to invite you to the Pinnacle Foundation's annual charity gala this Saturday evening. Naomi blinked in surprise. I'm sorry, Harrison Wells is inviting me to his charity event? The same Harrison Wells whose company I just defeated in court? The very same, Olivia replied with a hint of amusement. Mr. Wells expressed that he wishes to discuss a potential settlement regarding the West Side properties. He believes a more collaborative approach might benefit all parties. After hanging up, Naomi relayed the conversation to Prisha, whose eyes widened. You're not actually considering going, are you? This has to be some kind of trap. Or a publicity stunt, Naomi mused. Either way, if there's even a small chance he's serious about a settlement that helps the residents, I have to try. Saturday evening found Naomi stepping out of a rideshare in front of the Grand Meridian Hotel. She'd splurged on a forest green dress, simple but elegant, and had allowed her curly hair to fall freely around her shoulders. The ballroom glittered with wealth. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, and guests adorned in jewelry worth more than her annual salary. Naomi felt instantly out of place. Ms. Foster. The deep voice behind her was unmistakable. Harrison Wells stood in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, looking more like a movie star than a businessman. Up close, without the tension of the courtroom, Naomi noticed the flecks of blue in his gray eyes. Mr. Wells, she acknowledged, accepting the flute of champagne he offered. I appreciate the invitation, though I must admit I'm surprised by it. His lips curved slightly. I imagine you are. Would you join me on the terrace? It's quieter there. The night air provided a welcome respite from the crowded ballroom. City lights sparkled below them like earthbound stars. You made quite an impression in court, Harrison began. Few people speak to me the way you did. I'm not known for sugarcoating things, evidently. He studied her with that same intense look from the courthouse. I've had my legal team review your evidence. While I don't agree with all your conclusions, I recognize that some of Pinnacle's contractors may have overstepped. Naomi raised an eyebrow. That's an interesting way of saying they broke the law under your company's direction. Instead of anger, Harrison's response was a low chuckle. You really don't hold back, do you? Most people in this room would be falling over themselves to curry favor. I'm not most people, Mr. Wells, and flattery won't help those families. No, I suppose it won't. He turned to face the view. I'm prepared to offer alternative housing, newer units in one of our completed buildings. Same neighborhood, better accommodations, locked-in affordable rates for 10 years. Naomi nearly choked on her champagne. That's actually reasonable. What's the catch? No catch. We still develop the original property, but nobody gets displaced. As they discussed the details, Naomi noticed Harrison's passion when he spoke about urban development. Behind the ruthless businessman persona, there seemed to be genuine vision. The conversation shifted unexpectedly when Harrison asked about her background. Before she knew it, Naomi found herself sharing stories about growing up in a working-class neighborhood and her journey to becoming a lawyer. Your parents must be proud, he commented. My mother is. Dad died when I was 12. Cancer treatment was too expensive, she said matter-of-factly. That's partly why I do what I do. Systems shouldn't be designed to crush people. Something flickered in Harrison's expression. Recognition, perhaps. The orchestra inside began playing a waltz, spilling music onto the terrace. Would you care to dance, Miss Foster? He asked suddenly. I don't think that's a good idea. We're still opponents, even with this potential settlement. One dance doesn't change that. Consider it diplomatic relations. Against her better judgment, Naomi allowed him to lead her to the dance floor. His hand rested lightly on her waist as they moved seamlessly among the other couples. She was acutely aware of the curious glances from the other guests, the city's elite wondering who had captured Harrison Wells. Attention! People are staring, she murmured. Let them, he replied simply. I find myself more interested in your opinion than theirs lately. As the song ended, Harrison's assistant approached with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, sir, but Senator Richardson is insisting on speaking with you. Harrison nodded, then turned back to Naomi. This conversation isn't finished. Would you consider continuing it over dinner next week? Naomi hesitated, recognizing the dangerous territory she was entering. This was no longer strictly about the case or the settlement. Just dinner, he added. No legal discussions if you prefer. I'll think about it, she finally answered, unsure why her heart was beating so rapidly or why, despite every rational thought, she was already certain her answer would be yes. Beyond appearances, the bistro Harrison had chosen for their dinner was upscale yet discreet, tucked away in a historic building downtown. No photographers, no socialites, and most importantly, no business associates to witness their meeting. Naomi arrived 10 minutes early, a habit from her court appearances. She wore a simple burgundy dress with a cardigan, professional enough for a meeting, elegant enough for dinner, and ambiguous enough to avoid admitting this might be something more. To her surprise, Harrison was already there, engaged in friendly conversation with an elderly server. Naomi, he said, rising as she approached. Gone was the imposing suit, replaced by a navy button-down and charcoal slacks that somehow made him look more approachable. I'm glad you came. I was curious, she admitted as they settled at a corner table. The billionaire who builds luxury condos wants to have dinner with the lawyer who publicly challenged him. It's an unusual situation. Harrison's smile reached his eyes. I find myself in many unusual situations lately, all stemming from a certain public defender who doesn't seem impressed by my bank account. The waiter arrived with wine Harrison had pre-selected, a modest but excellent vintage. As they ordered, Naomi noticed how Harrison addressed the staff with genuine warmth, remembering names and asking personal questions. You seem surprised, he observed after the waiter left. I expected you to be more arrogant, dismissive, something like that, she admitted. I save that for corporate takeovers and board meetings, he said with a hint of self-deprecation. Giovanni has worked here for 30 years. His granddaughter just started college on a Pinnacle Foundation scholarship. Dinner progressed with surprising ease. They discovered shared interests in architecture and classic films. Harrison spoke passionately about urban renewal projects that actually benefited communities, while Naomi shared stories about clients whose lives had been transformed by access to proper legal representation. May I ask you something personal? Naomi ventured as they shared a dessert. Why real estate development? With your resources, you could do anything. Something shadowed his expression. My father was a construction worker. He died in an accident on a luxury development site when I was 16. The company's negligence was clear, but their legal team buried the evidence. I'm sorry, Naomi said softly. That must have been devastating. Harrison nodded. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep our apartment. One day I came home to find an eviction notice. The building had been sold to developers. His fingers tapped restlessly against his water glass. I promised myself that one day I'd have enough power that no one could do that to us again. So you became what you fought against? He met her gaze directly. I became powerful enough to change things. At least that was the plan. What happened? Success, money, the endless pursuit of more. He sighed. Until a red-headed lawyer reminded me rather publicly what it feels like to be on the receiving end of power wielded without compassion. After dinner, they walked along the riverfront, the city lights reflecting on the water. Their conversation flowed naturally, punctuated by comfortable silences. The settlement papers were filed today, Harrison mentioned. The Westside families can begin moving into the new units next month. Thank you for honoring that agreement, Naomi said. It means a lot to those people. I'm not just honoring it, I'm expanding it. We're implementing similar policies across all our developments. Naomi stopped walking. You're serious? Dead serious. The board isn't thrilled, but they'll adjust. He turned to face her. You've made me reconsider some things, Naomi. They stood close, the evening breeze carrying the scent of his subtle cologne. For a moment, Naomi thought he might kiss her, and for a moment she wanted him to. Instead, Harrison's phone buzzed. He checked it with a frown. I'm sorry, there's a situation at one of our international sites. I need to take this. Naomi nodded, partly relieved and partly disappointed. As he spoke on the phone, his demeanor shifted subtly. She caught glimpses of the commanding CEO, issuing directives with authority. It was a reminder of the vastly different worlds they inhabited. After the call, Harrison arranged for his driver to take her home. At her door, he hesitated. I have to fly to Tokyo tomorrow morning, he said. I'll be gone for a week. Ah, the glamorous life of a billionaire, she teased lightly. His expression remained serious. I'd like to see you when I get back, if you're willing. I'd like that too, she admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. As his car pulled away, Naomi leaned against her apartment door. What was she doing? Harrison Wells represented everything she had fought against her entire career: wealth, power, privilege. Yet she had glimpsed something behind that facade, pain that mirrored her own and perhaps the capacity for change. Her phone chimed with a text message from Harrison. Thank you for tonight. You've given me a lot to think about. Naomi smiled despite herself. She was beginning to realize that Harrison Wells was far more complex than the billionaire tyrant she had confronted in court. The question was whether she was prepared to explore those complexities, and what it might cost her if she did. As she drifted to sleep that night, Naomi couldn't help wondering if she was witnessing the transformation of a man who had lost his way, or simply being skillfully manipulated by someone accustomed to getting exactly what he wanted. Crisis of values. A sleek conference room of Foster & Associates, the small law firm Naomi had established with two former public defender colleagues, fell silent as the television news report concluded. Pinnacle Development has purchased the East Harbor Community Center property. Sources say demolition will begin next month to make way for luxury waterfront condominiums, the reporter announced over footage of Harrison Wells exiting a corporate jet. Prisha muted the television and turned to Naomi. Isn't that the community center where you volunteer? The one that runs those after-school programs? Naomi nodded, her stomach twisted into knots. She hadn't heard from Harrison since he'd returned from Tokyo 3 days ago. Now she understood why. He knew about this when we had dinner, she said quietly. He knew and didn't say a word. I hate to say I told you so, Prisha began. Then don't. Naomi cut her off, more sharply than intended. She gathered her files. I'm going to East Harbor. Those kids deserve to hear this from someone who cares. The community center was a brick building from the 1950s that had been repurposed over decades to serve the predominantly immigrant neighborhood. Inside, children's artwork lined the walls, and the sound of laughter echoed from the gymnasium. Javier Rodriguez, the center's director, greeted Naomi with a concerned expression. You've heard? Just now. I came straight here. Naomi followed him to his cramped office. There has to be something we can do. Legally? Nothing. The owner sold fair and square. Javier sighed. We don't have the resources to fight a company like Pinnacle. Naomi's phone buzzed with a message from Harrison. We need to talk. Dinner tonight? Her response was immediate. No, I'm at the East Harbor Community Center. Come here if you want to talk. Surprisingly, Harrison arrived less than an hour later. He stood out starkly in the humble surroundings, his tailored suit contrasting with the worn furniture and linoleum floors. Children stared as he passed, whispering among themselves. Naomi met him in the hallway, arms crossed. You have a lot of nerve showing up here. I came because you asked, Harrison replied evenly. And because I owe you an explanation. You owe these people an explanation. 200 children use this center daily. 60 elderly residents rely on the meal program. Where are they supposed to go? Harrison glanced around, noticing the curious onlookers. Is there somewhere private we can talk? Naomi led him to an empty classroom. Once the door closed, her composure fractured. Was it all an act? The settlement, the charity, the personal stories? Just a way to distract me while you planned this? Naomi, it's not what you think. This deal was in motion months before I met you. The board finalized it while I was in Tokyo. And you couldn't stop it? You're the CEO. It's complicated. It's actually very simple, she interrupted. You told me I made you reconsider things. What exactly did you reconsider, Harrison? Because from where I'm standing, nothing's changed. You're still destroying communities for profit. The door opened and a young girl of about 10 peered in. Ms. Naomi, is everything okay? Naomi softened immediately. Everything's fine, Daniela. We're just having a grown-up discussion. Is he the man who's taking away our center? Daniela asked bluntly, eyeing Harrison with suspicion. The direct question clearly caught Harrison off guard. Before Naomi could intervene, he knelt to the child's level. What's your favorite thing about this place, Daniela? The library corner. And Ms. Naomi teaches us about the law on Tuesdays. She tilted her head. My mom says people like you only care about money. Harrison's expression shifted subtly. People can change, Daniela. Sometimes they just need someone to remind them of what's important. After Daniela left, Harrison turned to Naomi. Show me. Show you what? Everything. The programs, the people. I want to see what I'm about to destroy. For the next hour, Naomi led Harrison through the center. He watched elderly immigrants taking citizenship classes, teenagers in a coding workshop, and young children receiving homework help. In the small library corner, volunteers read stories to a circle of captivated children. Harrison remained mostly silent, observing with an unreadable expression. Only when they reached the community garden on the roof did he speak again. My mother would have loved this place, he said quietly. After my father died, there was nothing like this for us. These people aren't just statistics on a development plan, Harrison. This center is their lifeline. He nodded slowly. I see that now. Does it matter? Or is profit the only bottom line that counts? Harrison looked at her intently. You really believe I'm that one-dimensional? After everything I've shared with you? I don't know what to believe anymore, Naomi admitted. I thought I saw someone different beneath the billionaire facade. Someone who understood loss and injustice because he'd experienced it. Someone who might use his power to make things right. I am that person, Harrison insisted. But I'm also responsible for a company with thousands of employees and shareholders. And these people? Who's responsible for them? Their conversation was interrupted by Javier, who approached with a worried expression. Naomi, there are reporters outside. Someone leaked that Mr. Wells is here. Harrison checked his watch. I have a board meeting in an hour. I need to go. Of course you do, Naomi said bitterly. This isn't over, Harrison promised, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that momentarily took her breath away. Trust me. As he left, facing a barrage of questions from reporters, Naomi felt a profound sense of loss. She had allowed herself to believe in Harrison Wells, not just in his ability to change, but in the connection they had formed. Now, watching him retreat into his corporate persona, she wondered if she had simply been naive. That night, Naomi stayed late at the center, helping children create protest signs for a community rally. Her phone remained silent. No calls, no messages, no explanations from Harrison. When she finally returned home, emotionally exhausted, Naomi found a single envelope that had been slipped under her door. Inside was a handwritten note. Some battles must be fought from within. Meet me tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pinnacle Tower. I need your help. Naomi stared at the note, torn between hope and skepticism. The rational part of her brain warned that this could be another disappointment. But her heart, which had somehow become invested in Harrison's redemption, urged her to give him one last chance. Tomorrow would reveal which Harrison Wells was real, the ruthless developer or the man who had begun to remember his own humanity. Building new foundations, the imposing glass and steel structure of Pinnacle Tower gleamed in the morning sunlight as Naomi approached. She'd spent a restless night deliberating whether to come, ultimately deciding that she owed it to the community center families to try every possible avenue. The security guard at reception checked her name against a list. Ms. Foster, Mr. Wells is expecting you in the executive conference room, top floor. As the elevator climbed 52 stories, Naomi steeled herself for whatever awaited. She had deliberately dressed in her most professional attire, a charcoal pantsuit, with a crisp white blouse, armor for what she anticipated would be a difficult conversation. The elevator doors opened directly into an expansive reception area where Olivia, Harrison's assistant, greeted her with unexpected warmth. He's inside with the board. They've been meeting since 5 a.m., Olivia explained, leading her toward massive double doors. It's been intense. Before Naomi could ask for clarification, Olivia opened the door and the heated discussion inside immediately ceased. 12 people in expensive suits turned to stare at her, 11 with confusion or annoyance, and Harrison with unmistakable relief. Naomi, he said, standing. Thank you for coming. Despite his composed appearance, the dark circles under his eyes suggested he'd slept even less than she had. A silver-haired man at the end of the table frowned. Wells, what is the meaning of this? We're in the middle of a crucial vote. Directors, this is Naomi Foster, She's here at my request to present an alternative proposal for the East Harbor property. Harrison gestured for her to join him. I believe you'll find it compelling. Naomi blinked in surprise. This was not what she had expected. Alternative proposal? She echoed. Harrison handed her a folder. Review this quickly. I think you'll approve. Inside was a comprehensive plan for transforming the East Harbor Community Center, not by demolishing it, but by expanding it. The blueprints showed the existing building preserved and enhanced with modern facilities, surrounded by mixed-income housing and green spaces. The Pinnacle Foundation would establish a $20 million endowment to ensure its operations for decades to come. This is your proposal? Naomi asked quietly. Harrison nodded. Our proposal, if you're willing to partner on it. I need your voice to make them understand why this matters. The board chairman cleared his throat impatiently. Mr. Wells has asked us to sacrifice considerable profit margins for this charitable venture. Perhaps you can explain why we should agree. For the next 30 minutes, Naomi did exactly that. She spoke about the community impact, the positive press, and the long-term benefits of corporate social responsibility. But most powerfully, she shared the stories of the people whose lives would be affected, putting names and faces to what had previously been just a real estate transaction. Harrison watched her with undisguised admiration, occasionally adding financial projections that showed how the revised plan could still be profitable, if less astronomically so. When the vote finally came, it passed 8-4. As the directors filed out, many still grumbling, Harrison and Naomi remained in the conference room. You did this, she said, stunned by what had just transpired. You risked everything. Not everything, he replied. But enough. I spent all night reworking the numbers to make this viable. Why? Harrison moved closer, his voice low. Because you made me remember who I wanted to be before success changed me. Because those children deserve better than what happened to us when we were young. He paused. And because I couldn't bear the thought of losing your respect. The weight of his words settled between them. I can't promise I'll always get it right, Harrison continued. The business world isn't built for idealism, but I'm committed to finding a better way forward, if you're willing to help me navigate it. Are you offering me a job, Mr. Wells? Naomi asked with a small smile. I'm offering you a partnership. His gaze held hers, in every sense of the word. 6 months later, the East Harbor Community Center held its grand reopening celebration. The renovated facility now included a legal aid clinic, directed by Naomi's firm, fully funded by the Pinnacle Foundation. Children played in the new playground while community members explored the expanded facilities. Harrison stood slightly apart from the crowd, observing the impact of their work with quiet satisfaction. Naomi found him there, slipping her hand into his. Having second thoughts about your career change? She teased. Since the East Harbor decision, Harrison had restructured Pinnacle's leadership, stepping back as CEO to focus on the foundation's work. The business press had called it everything from a midlife crisis to revolutionary corporate ethics. Not one, he replied, squeezing her hand. The board is still adapting to the new direction, but the public response has been overwhelmingly positive. Turns out social responsibility can be good business. And the other changes? Naomi asked. Any regrets there? Harrison turned to face her fully. In the month since their confrontation, their professional collaboration had blossomed into something deeper. Their relationship had raised eyebrows in both their worlds, the billionaire developer and the community lawyer, but neither cared much for others' opinions anymore. My only regret is that it took me so long to find my way back to what matters, he said. I needed someone brave enough to challenge me, someone who saw beyond the wealth and power to the person I could be. Daniela, the girl who had questioned Harrison during their confrontation, ran up to them with an excited grin. Mr. Harrison, we're cutting the ribbon now. You promised I could help. As Harrison allowed himself to be pulled toward the ceremony, Naomi watched with a full heart.